Hello everyone, so let's talk about the culture, the meaning, characteristics, and functions. The costumes, traditions, attitudes, values, norms, ideas, and symbols govern human behavior pattern. The members of the society not only endorse them but also mold their behavior accordingly. They are the members of society because of the traditions and costumes which are common and which are passed down from generation to generation through the process of socialization. These common patterns designate culture, and it is in terms of culture that we are able to understand the specific behavior pattern of human beings and their social relations. Cultural ideas emerge from shared social life. So let's proceed to the meaning of culture. Sometimes an individual is described as a highly cultured person, meaning thereby that the person in question has certain features such as his speech, manner, and taste for literature, music, or painting which distinguish him from others. Sometimes culture is used in popular discourse to refer to a celebration or an evening of entertainment, as when one speaker of a cultural show. In this sense, culture is identified with aesthetics or the fine arts such as dance, music, or drama. This is also different from the technical meaning of the word culture. Culture is used in a special sense in anthropology and sociology. It refers to the sum of human beings' life, ways, their behavior, beliefs, feelings, and also their thoughts. One of the most comprehensive definitions of the term culture was provided by the British anthropologist Edward Taylor. He defined culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. According to H.T. Mazumdar, culture is the sum total of human achievements, material as well as non-material, capable of transmission sociologically. Let's proceed to the characteristics of culture. Number 1 is learned behavior. Not all behavior is learned, but most of it is learned. Combining one's hair, standing in line, telling jokes, criticizing the president, and going to the movie all constitutes behavior which had to be learned. For example, the ways in which a small child learns to handle a tyrannical father or a rejecting mother often affect the ways in which that child 10 or 15 years later handles his relationships with other person or other people. Number 2 is culture is abstract. Culture exists in the minds or habits of the members of society. Culture is the shared ways of doing and thinking. There are degrees of visibility of cultural behavior, ranging from the regularized activities of persons to their internal reasons for doing it. Number 3 is culture is a pattern of learned behavior. The definition of culture indicated that the learned behavior of people is pattern. Each person's behavior often depends upon some particular behavior of someone else. The point is that, as a general rule, behaviors are somewhat integrated or organized with related behaviors of other persons. Number 4, culture is the product of behavior. Cultural learnings are the products of behavior. As a person behaves, there occur changes in him. He acquires the ability to swim, to feel hatred towards someone, or to sympathize with someone. They have grown out of his previous behaviors. In both ways, then, human behaviors is a result of behavior. The experience of other people are impressed on one as he grows up, and also many of his traits and abilities have grown out of his own past behavior. Number 5, culture includes attitudes, values, knowledge. There is widespread error in the thinking of many people who tend to regard the ideas, attitudes, and the notions which they have as their own. It is easy to overestimate the uniqueness of one's own attitudes and ideas. When there is agreement with other people, it is largely unnoticed. But when there is a disagreement or difference, one is usually conscious of it. Your difference, however, may also be cultural. For example, suppose you are a Catholic and the other person a Protestant. Number 6, culture also includes material objects. Man behavior results in creating objects. Men were behaving when they made these things. To make these objects required numerous and various skills, which human beings gradually build up through the ages. Man has invented something else, and so on. Occasionally, one encounters the view that man does not really make steel or a battleship. All these things first exist in a state nature. Number 7, culture is shared by the members of society. Patterns of learned behavior and the results of behavior are possessed not by one or a few, but usually by a large proportion. Thus, many millions of persons share such behavior patterns as Christianity, the use of automobiles, or the English language. Person may share some part of culture uniquely. For example, as an American, do the Christian religion. To some persons, Christianity is the all-important, predominating idea in life. Number 8, culture is superorganic. Culture, sometimes called superorganic, it implies that culture is somehow superior to nature. The word superorganic is used implies that what may be quite a different phenomenon from a cultural point of view. For example, a tree means different things to the botanist who studies it, the old woman who uses it for shade in the late summer afternoon, the farmer who picks its fruit, the motorist who collides with it, and the young lovers who carve their initials in its trunk. The same physical objects and physical characteristics, in other words, may constitute a variety of quite different cultural objects and cultural characteristics. Number 9, culture is pervasive. Culture is pervasive, it touches every aspect of life. The pervasiveness of culture is manifest in two ways. First, culture provides an unquestioned context within which individual action and response take place. Not only emotional actions but relational actions are governed by cultural norms. Second, culture pervades social activities and institutions. According to Ruth Benedict, a culture, like an individual, is a more or less consistent pattern of thought and action. Number 10, culture is a way of life. Culture means simply the way of life of a people or their design for living. Clockon and Kelly define it in his sense. A culture is a historically derived system of explicit and implicit signs for living, which tends to be shared by all or specifically designed members of a group. Explicit culture refers to similarities in word and action which can be directly observed. For example, the adolescent's cultural behavior can be generalized from regularities in dress, mannerism, and conversation. Implicit culture exists in abstract forms which are not quite obvious. Number 11, culture is a human product. Culture is not a force operating by itself and independent of the human actors. There is an unconscious tendency of deity culture to endow it with life and treat it as a thing. In strict sense, therefore, culture does not do anything on its own. It does not cause the individual to act in a particular way, nor does it make the normal individual into a maladjust one. Culture, in short, is a human product. It is not independently endowed with life. Next is number 12. Culture is idealistic. Culture embodies the ideas and norms of a group. It is a sum total of the ideal patterns and norms of behavior of a group. Culture consists of the intellectual, artistic, and social ideals and institutions which the member of the society profess and to which they strive to conform. Culture is transmitted among members of society. The cultural ways are learned by persons from persons. Many of them are handed down by one's elders, by parents, teachers, and others. Other cultural behaviors are handed up to others. Some of the transmission of culture is among contemporaries. For example, the styles of dress, political views, and the use of recent labor-saving devices. One does not acquire a behavior pattern spontaneously. 14. Culture is continually changing. There is one fundamental and inescapable attribute of culture, the fact of unending change. Some societies at some times change slowly, and hence in comparison to other societies seem not to be changing at all, but they are changing even though not obviously so. Next is 15. Culture is variable. Culture varies from society to society, group to group. Hence, we say culture of India or England. Further, culture varies from group to group within the same society. There are subcultures within a culture, cluster of patterns which are both related to general culture of the society and yet distinguishable from it are called subcultures. Number 16. Culture is an integrated system. Culture possesses an order and system. Its various parts are integrated with each other, and any new element which is introduced is also integrated. The last characteristic of culture is language is the chief vehicle of culture. Man lives not only in the present but also in the past and future. He is able to do this because he possesses language which transmits to him what was learned in the past and enables him to transmit the accumulated wisdom to the next generation. To conclude, culture is everything which is socially learned and shared by the members of a society. It is culture that, in the wide focus of the world, distinguishes individual from individual, group from group, and society. Next, we have functions of culture. Among all groups of people, we find widely shared beliefs, norms, values, and preferences. Since culture seems to be a universal human phenomenon, it occurs naturally to wonder whether culture corresponds to any universal human needs. This curiosity raises the questions of the functions of culture. Social scientists have discussed various functions of culture. Culture has certain functions for both individual and society. The following are some of the important functions of culture. Number 1 is culture defines situations. Each culture has many subtle cues which define each situation. It reveals whether one should prepare to fight, run, laugh, or make love. For example, suppose someone approaches you with the right hand outreached at waist level. What does this mean? That he wishes to shake hands in friendly greeting is perfectly obvious. Obvious that is to anyone familiar with our culture. But in the other place or time, the outreach hand might mean hostility or warning. One doesn't know what to do in a situation until he has defined the situation. Each society has its insults and fighting words. The cues which define situations appear in infinite variety. A person who moves from one society into another will spend many years misreading the cues, for example, laughing at the wrong places. Number 2. Culture defines attitudes, values, and goals. Each person learns in his culture what is good, true, and beautiful. Attitudes, values, and goals are defined by culture, while the individual normally learns them as unconsciously as he learns the language. Attitudes are tendencies to feel and act in certain ways. Values are measures of goodness or desirability. For example, we value private property, government, and many other things and experience. Goals are those attainments which our values define as worthy. Winning the race, gaining the affections of a particular girl, or becoming president of the firm by approving certain. Number 3. Culture defines myths, legends, and supernatural. Myths and legends are an important part of every culture. They may inspire, reinforce effort and sacrifice, and bring comfort in bereavement. Whether they are true is sociologically unimportant. Ghosts are real to people who believe in them and who act upon this belief. We cannot understand the behavior of any group without knowing something of the myths, legends, and supernatural beliefs they hold. Myths and legends are powerful forces in a group's behavior. Lastly, culture provides behavior patterns. The individual need not go through painful trial and error learning to know what foods can be eaten or how to live among people without fear. He finds a ready-made set of patterns awaiting him which he needs only to learn and follow. The culture map out the path of matrimony. The individual does not have to wonder how one secures a mate. He knows the procedure defined by his culture. Next, we have culture and society. The relationship between society, culture, and personality is stressed by Ralph Linton. A society is an organized group of individuals. A culture is an organized group of learned responses. The individual is a living organism capable of independent thought, feeling, and action, but with his independence limited and all his resources profoundly modified by contact with the society and culture in which he developed. A society cannot exist apart from culture. A society is always made of persons and their groupings. People carry and transmit culture, but they are not culture. No culture can exist except as it is embodied in a society of man. No society can operate without cultural directives. Like matter and energy, like mind and body, they are interdependent and interacting yet express different aspects of human situation.